Better late than never. Here we are, 11 minutes late. We got our audio straightened out. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Happy Wednesday.
You too. Glad
How
you're
are we
here.
doing? I'm feeling good. Feeling good. Sorry about last week. We missed a week. I was a little under the weather and feeling a little overwhelmed. So we're back with a vengeance here. Episode 8,
Oh, joy.
fighting and making up.
Yeah, repair.
What are our couples still fighting pretty much about money? I feel like that's one of the biggest things that they fight about. What other kinds of things are
It's like money, sex, time, family, money, sex, time, messiness.
messiness? Are
Yeah,
we
I mean, all the things that people fight about are not about the actual thing
okay?
itself. I mean, it's more. There's the I mean, it is, but it isn't. Like it's the
It's like we're
underlying.
not really mad that they leave the cap off the toothpaste. We're mad about other things, but we'll complain about that.
No, we are mad that they leave the cap off the toothpaste.
Mhm.
It is that, but it's also that there's underlying themes that are going on that are getting played out through the toothpaste, so to speak.
Okay.
So that's so as a therapist, that's what we have to get to rather than just focusing on just that it's the cap off the toothpaste.
Right. So what kind of things do you have to dissect when you're meeting with a couple and they've got a particular issue? And can we maybe use an example of something that you've experienced or
Oh, geez.
sort of just get through it?
uh Well, I mean, I'll just like I had a couple come in yesterday and they happen to be fighting over um, alcohol and how much, it wasn't like one is an alcoholic, but the other one is one of them drinks, the other one really doesn't. And the one that really doesn't just has a limit after which she's uncomfortable. That the person because the person they're her partner then starts to act differently
Okay.
and so then
So
that
she's like, "We go out, and as long as he has 2 drinks, we're fine, but once he hits 3 or 4, he starts doing X, Y, and Z, and it drives me insane, or it's
yes,
a turn off, or it
yeah,
causes issues."
right.
Okay.
So then I've got to as the therapist I've got to dissect what's going on, what's making her uh uncomfortable. Why is he needing more than 2 drinks or wanting more than 2 drinks? How is he handling her distress? Uh, does she have something in her history of alcoholism or unpredictability that would be traumatic for her to then experience again?
Mm.
Uh, why and then if he's not tending to her discomfort, why, and what's going on for him and his upbringing, that maybe he had no power, and this is the way he's trying to get some power is
Mhm.
they also had an agreement on things and it got broken because neither one of them, they kind of relaxed around it, and neither one of them thought to kind of plan about these events that had alcohol in them,
Mm.
and prepare for them and predict what might happen. And so those are just this off the cuff things to
Sure,
think of.
sure. And I
Yeah.
imagine too, when you're trying to solve these issues for couples, that their attachment style comes into play, right? As it always does.
Yes. Yes, it's always there.
Mhm.
Always there, always there. Wounds are there, and
Do you have a
so
chart? Do you have a chart on everyone that sort of like reminds you as you're going through and you see couples, maybe back to back, and you're like, all right, this guy's a wave, she's an anchor, he's an island. No, you just
now
kind of remember.
I know them. Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, if maybe sometimes there, there's, if couples haven't come in for a while, or they're new, and so I've spaced on who they are,
Mhm.
if I just look at my notes, I'm like, oh, right. I remember that. But yeah, I mean, it's once I kind of have them, I understand them. It's hard to forget that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about making up? Like, what are some of the aspects of that or some of the variations that you recommend? Or do we start back on to the initial problem? And is there more to dissect there?
Well, I mean, the thing that happens, if we just talk systemically,
Okay.
is, oftentimes if it gets bad enough that we will automatically go into a one person
System.
system thinking.
Okay.
And that's what then has us fighting. Um, and so and it's natural, that's human, because we're in a fight or flight type response when we're fighting usually. And so it's kill or be killed kind of
Mhm.
as a species. And so the thing that we have to realize is when we're doing that, right, we're then losing sight of the fact that no matter what we believe or where we are or whatever, we are undoubtedly in a two-person system. And so we have to get back to that. We have to. Otherwise, it's like suicide. Um, and so when we're fighting, the thing that we have to remember is we have to get back to being collaborative. We have to be back and be okay with one another. Otherwise, because our survival really does depend on it.
Mhm. So we're back to that. You have to be a team player.
I have to be a team player, but there's lots of things that get in the way. So let's just go into when I say it has to be done quickly. The reason that repair and getting back onto the same team needs to be quick. And
Mhm.
we're talking quick as in 20 to 30 minutes needs to
Oh,
happen.
wow. Okay.
Needs to happen. And this, because it goes into,
We're not sleeping on it. We're
oh,
not
oh no,
think
no.
about it in the morning. Okay.
Well, I mean, sometimes it has to be that way, but I'll explain why that's not good.
Okay.
So if we're working, it goes into the neurobiology of the brain.
Mhm.
So the brain, there's a memory center. And so what happens is something happens that we don't like, and it's in the front of our memory. It's not in long-term memory. And research has shown that it takes about 20 to 30 minutes for it to then switch back into long-term memory. So if our partners if we can repair within that 20 to 30 minutes, it's then as though this thing doesn't exist. It does not stay in memory. It doesn't go into the long-term memory bank. So oftentimes if people are really good at repairing and doing it quickly, they might come into therapy and they might say, I feel like we got into something the other day. And they'll be like, yeah, it was something. I don't remember. What was that? I have no idea. Yeah, I don't know. It was just a little thing, like they will not remember it at all. And it's
That's
fascinating.
fascinating. Yeah.
It's really, really cool. But the reason why that's good for you and good for the relationship is that in this long-term memory, we have all the times that our parents or primary caregiver did the same or similar thing. So we have all that crap that's in this backlog that wasn't repaired correctly. So we have this pile of shit. And then and then we also have on top of that, some of the shit from our relationship, our present day relationship that hasn't been repaired.
Mhm.
So, and then if you don't repair it quickly, then that goes on to it just keeps layering on these piles of shit. And so it just becomes like the last thing you want to do is pile that on.
Right.
Right? You want to start removing that.
Mhm.
And so it's in your best interest to repair it quickly, because if you don't, you're going to get not only the time that you did it, but all the other times that you did it and all the other times that other people did it, in terms of the emotional reaction. So very much you need to repair quickly. It is very important.
So if people are coming to you to repair something, that it's already a little too late in terms of that specific issue that they were dealing with, unless it happened in the car on the way to your
Yeah, I mean, it's too late in the sense of it not having registered into the long-term memory, but
correct.
it's definitely not too late.
Mhm.
Repairing, I mean, otherwise, like things like affairs and things couldn't be worked through.
Mhm.
Um, but that's a whole nother topic. So then you got to ask, like, why is it so hard for some people and couples to repair?
Mhm. Okay.
Um, because it's like apologizing for some, excuse me, for some people is just a foreign concept. They don't think they need to, they don't want to, uh, and you got to look then again at,
Thinking that we got bad.
Okay, that was not for us. Sorry. That's my ringtone.
uh,
Exciting.
now for something completely different. um, okay, so you got to think back to attachment of this kid never saw his parents apologize to one another when they got into fights. Never saw it, never heard it, didn't happen. And so there's this, imprint of that just doesn't happen. You don't do that. In addition to the fact that when his parents made a mistake with him, they didn't apologize.
Mm.
So it's not even in the comprehension that that's something you do, that you repair relationships when you've messed up. Um, and so, and then in addition, if you look at me, more so islands struggle a lot with shame. And just as a reminder, islands, we call them islands, but the avoidantly attached individuals struggle a lot with shame. And so when you look at apology, so shame is when somebody is attaching their personhood. They're not distinguishing their personhood from their behavior.
Okay.
So I did a bad thing. That means I'm bad, rather than I did a bad thing. I can still be a good person and do a bad thing.
Got it. Okay.
So shameful people will just equate, I did a bad thing, therefore I'm bad.
Mm.
So they then, if you think of that, if like, oh shoot, if I have to apologize, it means I've done a bad thing, which means I'm bad. And they're avoidant of that feeling. They don't want to feel that way. And their only, recourse is to avoid.
It's baby that we got bad.
Gosh, that's State Farm. State Farm's trying to call me right now. I'm going to turn this off. Okay.
Their only recourse is to avoid that. And so it would be extremely difficult for islands in that state to then say, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
The other thing, so if we're dealing and just going off of that a little bit, is that islands, because of that avoidant thing, and they just want to, they oftentimes want to get off the conflict as quickly as possible. Just get it done.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times they will say, okay, well, I'm sorry. Kind of, I'm sorry, can we move on?
Ugh.
Or, that's so that would be an island of like, they just say, I'm sorry, without really, there's no substance to it. There's no, like, it doesn't give the other person an idea of like what they're actually sorry for.
Sure.
And they don't really even know. They're just saying it to stop the fight kind of thing.
Mhm.
And
Ah.
so go ahead.
My pet peeve. Um, I'm sorry you feel that way.
Yeah, that's another one.
Oh,
Yeah, don't apologize for my feelings.
that is so bad.
It's really bad. And people, it's so common. And so really it's, I'm sorry I made you feel X, I'm sorry I hurt you. That's the last thing I want it's the last thing I want. I didn't want to hurt you. I'm really sorry. I can understand if I would, and a lot of times people will be like, well, I didn't mean it that way. That's not at all what I mean. And that it doesn't matter.
Doesn't help. Yeah.
What we say is perception is reality.
Yeah.
So how the other person perceived what you said is their reality. So if you said something and it wasn't intending to hurt them, but they perceived it in a certain way and they heard it in a certain way that it really hurt them, it really made them angry, it really made them sad, you need to correct that as quickly as possible. Because if you don't, your life is going to be miserable. So it is, wow, wait, hold on. I'm really sorry. What just happened? Like you seem really sad or you seem really hurt. Well, yeah, you just said that my mom is the worst person on earth. And it's like, oh, no, I did not mean it that way. And if you heard it that way, I could understand how that you would feel really sad.
Mhm.
I'm really sorry, that you are not negating their experience. I'm sorry you feel that way is you're apologizing for the fact that I feel sorry or feel sad.
Yeah, it's a non-apology.
It's a non-apology. Yes.
Non-apology.
So getting to waves, why waves are the anxiously attached individuals. Oftentimes they will come. Why they wouldn't apologize is one, if their parents, they never saw their parents apologize to one another or nobody ever apologized to them. As well as they have this idea that kind of the self-righteousness of, well, I am justified in what I did. I did this because blah, 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 and so I'm not sorry. And it's filled with resentment.
Yeah.
Filled with resentment. And so that's just a reason why we've got to, each one, Waves and Islands, can each equally not apologize. They just tend to do it for different reasons.
Yeah. I know we're talking a lot about apologies when we talk about repairing. Is that sort of the cornerstone of repair, is an apology, or are there other things that you need to do to be able to repair the fight?
Well, I would say yes, and doing it well, doing it quickly and doing it well. And another kind of, I don't want to say tactic because that sounds a little too prescribed, but it's kind of like what's it called? Not interviewing. Anyway, it's a negotiation. Like negotiation 101
Okay.
is like, it's a tactic in that realm of called leading with relief. And
Leading with relief. Okay.
leading with relief, really important concept. Where if you think of two people, they're one person systems because they're fighting now. That's the only thing that can happen if you're in a two-person system and you become one-person systems, is you have to go to war. So you got to think of these two people. They're in one-person system thinking. They're in fight or flight, which means you've got this individual with their guns locked and loaded, ready to shoot. Like they're just waiting for you to finish whatever you're going to say or do, and then they're going to shoot you. Right. So leading with relief does is you're leading something out of your mouth. The first thing is something really relieving for them. So, they're like waiting for this, and you say, "Oh my gosh, I'm really sorry that I made you feel so sad. Like, that's the last thing I want to do. I fucked that up."
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're then
That's
like,
disarming, right?
and they're like, oh. And they put down their arms, and it brings your partner into human brain again. That's the whole purpose
Out
of
of that fight or flight mentality.
exactly.
Okay.
Right. They then have their prefrontal cortex back online, and they're like, "Oh, I'm actually human again. I'm not prey or, predator." And so I can think again. And once that, because a lot of times people will say, "Well, I don't I didn't mean it that way," or something. And you can't have these discussions until your partner is in human brain.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to get them in, lead with relief. That brings them in the human brain. You've got to pause, right, so they can get there. And then you can say, I don't know if you're interested in my point of view. I'm happy to share, or wow, I had a really different experience of that. And if you are open to that, I'd love to share, something where it's not, yeah, but. I'm really sorry. I'd never wanted to make you feel that way, but you were attacking me, like you're not back into human brain. You're right back at it.
Yeah. That disarming is interesting. It reminds me of a story I heard where someone was fighting with their spouse, and his wife, they would separate from, each other in terms of like physical location. And, he would be angry, and then she would show up in the room and she would be completely naked, and she would just walk in completely naked. And it would just, because guys, boobs, very simple. It would disarm him to the point where they would eventually make up, because that was a thing. So it wasn't a a relief. Well, I guess it was, right?
Yeah. I mean, what you're talking about is actually really cool. It's really important. And because what we're looking for when somebody is escalated, and this happens whether you're in a fight or whether somebody is just dysregulated, but coming back to the theme of like fighting, we're both dysregulated.
Mm-hmm.
One person might be more dysregulated. And what we're looking for is just what's called a state change. And that's what your friend did, is created a complete state change for her husband. Right. He was in this mode. He saw her, and it was like, whoop, like just, like sex, like whatever.
Right.
And it's then extremely hard to then go back into that original state.
Yeah. And for her to do that, to know that, I mean, I don't know in what the instance, like who was at fault there, whether it was him or her, but like, I know for me, if I was not at fault, but I was trying to disarm, my partner, that would be hard for me to do, because I'd still be pissed. Right. And people tend to withhold a lot when they're angry.
Yeah. And that's like, so it's so self-sabotaging.
Sure.
It really is. And it's, because if your partner isn't good, you're not good. And, we just get into this, I want to be right. I want to, and it's like, what are you more invested in, being right or being happy?
Mm-hmm.
And I talk a lot about this with clients of, we are, as humans, we're just kind of shitty. We're lazy. We're selfish. We're self-centered. We are self-righteous. We misbehave if left to our own devices. And that's sort of what you were just saying of like, hey, it is oftentimes we will want to do what feels good to us in the moment, which would be in your circumstance that you just presented. I don't want to, I'm right. Like, I'm not going to take care of them when I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like, well, that's the thing that feels good to me in the moment. In the long term, that's going to really bite you in the ass, because you're going to be miserable with him being dysregulated. Rather than doing the thing that feels really, really hard in the moment, but that gives you long-term happiness. And a lot of people are playing the short game and not thinking of the long game, rather than thinking of the long game and, and not worrying about the short game. And it really takes, what this takes is an up-leveling of your relationship. It is extremely simple, but very difficult.
Yeah, you have to be really selfless, I think.
You have to be a real team player. You have to be in the name of a relationship rather than in the name of self.
That's interesting. I like that. Now, I don't know if that works the other way around, though. I know guys are simple, and a naked woman walks in, they're going to be disarmed. I don't know if the guy walking in on the girl naked is the same, that you get the same reaction or not. I guess it depends.
Sometimes,
So it depends
but if let's just go with it doesn't work that way. Then the guy has to figure out what he can do, what his his secret power is, that will disarm her.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, and it literally, sometimes it really just takes getting creative. It's like you could do a silly dance in front of somebody. You could make a joke, as long as you're not a common deflector like that, then a joke will work, but I mean, I just remember a time when my husband and I were I don't even remember what we were. I know what we were fighting about. We were fighting about
Kenny says he has no secret powers. I don't even have Kenny powers. Corey, you and your wife have a lovely relationship. I'm sure you can figure out a way to disarm
secret powers. Yeah,
that's the other thing. You really have to know your partner well to be able to know what makes them tick and what would disarm them.
Totally. Yeah, that's the whole point of being together, is knowing one another.
Interesting concept. I wanted to go back to something you were talking about with when you have a fight, if you don't repair it within 20 minutes, it goes from the frontal lobe into your long-term memory, and then it just piles up in there. How much is too much?
I mean, it depends on the individuals, right? And it also depends on the system of, if the same thing continues to happen over and over and over again, what's going on in the system that's allowing that to happen. And if there's too much water under the bridge, I mean, you'll just kind of feel it in the, if you're with a couple. I mean, that's how I could answer that, of like, I'm with a couple and it's like, it just is so flat. It's like, there's no room for either one of them to let things in. It's just kind of, there's an apathy. There's a, there has to be, if there's a lot of, so to speak, water under the bridge, you've got to see two people that are actually really motivated to make change.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, I guess it means that the more that's packed back there, the more work it's going to take to sort of unpack it. And so if it's harder and not like an easier fix, you really have to have two people that are super committed to making it work and putting in the work.
Yeah. And at that point, when stuff is, all back here, it's a thing of, you don't have to go back through everything. Because if you go back through everything, you're then dwelling in the past and you're creating more problems in the future and the present. So you need to air resentments. You need to air those, but it's in service of moving forward, of how do we want to take this, repair it as much as we can in the moment and learn from it so that from now on, we don't experience those things again. And we have the stays in place to not do so.
Yeah. So comment on Corey's thing here about going to bed mad. You said you might get back to that.
Get back to going to bed, man.
Yeah. Or not.
Yeah.
Trying not to, but sometimes you might have to.
Uh,
are there instances where that's okay?
I mean, if I think you've got to get to the point where ideally, you would get to a point where it might not be fully resolved or repaired, but the two of you can go to bed and be okay.
Mhm.
Right? You have to get to a point in this discussion or argument where, hey, I know we have more to discuss here. I'm really escalated right now, and I don't think it's going to be a productive conversation. Can we pick this back up tomorrow? Right after work, or because I want to resolve this with you. But you can't, if it's just a, kind of a standstill, it doesn't, and both of you are going to lose sleep. How can you get to a place where you're not continuing to just go over and over and over it, but that you can say, hey, this isn't getting us anywhere, and we're both escalated, we're both tired,
right? Exhausted.
Yeah, and I want to resolve this. So can we bookmark it here and come back to this tomorrow?
Mhm. Okay.
Because oftentimes one person is okay being in a fight and can totally go to bed, like no problem, and the other person is sitting there stewing, or hamster head is what I call it.
Are there certain attachment styles that matches up with, or not necessarily?
Yeah, definitely.
Hear it. Come on. We're all experts now.
Yeah, islands tend to be able to just sleep like a baby.
Wow.
And waves tend to be need resolution right then and there,
They
and
sort of
would stay up.
stew and ruminate.
Yeah. So you've got to find a way, if you're an island with a wave, of like, hey, how can we both be okay, not just me?
Yeah. And I would think in that instance, if the island needs to go to sleep, but the wave can't, you got to give that person some reassurance that, we're not going to fix it now, but I promise you, let me just let's just take a break, get some sleep. I still love you, whatever. We're going to work it out.
Yeah. And an actual time that you're going to come back to revisit it.
Okay.
Not, we'll talk about this later.
Mm-hmm.
That would be pretty anxiety producing for a wave, because they want resolution, and if they never know when later is going to come, and they also know that islands like to avoid, and so later is never for an island.
Yeah, we'll do that eventually. We'll talk about it someday.
Yeah, before we die.
Maybe
on the deathbed. I don't know. At that point, it won't matter, right?
What are some other mistakes that we make sometimes when we're fighting? Like, how do we recover from really, really hurtful things that can be said from people that are in that fight or flight mode?
Well, then you're going into territory of unfair fighting.
Okay, let's unpack that a little bit.
So people not understanding what a fair fight is versus unfair, like where if people are name calling or saying really hurtful things, like kind of purposely hurtful, they have some thinking in their mind that they can do those things and not pay a price. And they learned that somewhere in their childhood, again, attachment,
Right.
that they could do these things and kind of get away with it. And so as if I'm witnessing this as a therapist, I've got to call that out and kind of level them up, that word again, of how do you fight? How can you be angry and still not hit below the belt? And a lot of people have no idea how to do that. But it really does take it's like you don't just get to go off and not consider the other person whatsoever and not severely pay a price. And so putting some agreements in place of how they're actually going to fight and what they want these, if they're going to fight, what are the ground rules for that? And if you can't abide by that, well, then there's going to be consequences, and what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. I was just thinking too, when we talked about the 20-minute rule, forgiving and forgetting, right? So that can actually happen if things are repaired quickly, right? You say that it's not going to reach that the long-term memory piece, and you will in fact forget about it, assuming you've forgiven.
Yeah. I mean, so there's kind of a yes and with that, of like, yes. And if the same pattern continues and somebody continues to have to apologize for the same thing over and over and over and over again, that will go into long-term memory. That pattern in and of itself, and the person who, continues to have that happen to them, then will say, at some point, the apology means nothing. If you continue the behavior, if you're really sorry about it and you understand how it hurts me, then you will make the necessary changes to stop doing that. And if it continues, well, then there's something else going on that, you just think that you can continue to apologize and have it not add up.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Yeah. Well, it's hurtful.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So in conclusion, or wrapping up, and any pieces of this that we missed that you wanted to make sure we got to? The do's and don'ts, how to quickly repair. We talked about leading with relief, getting naked,
State changes.
state changers, yes. Dances.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'll give the instruction to people of like, hey, when you're in a really huge argument, next time I need you to strip down naked and then have it. And they immediately do exactly what you just did, which they start laughing, right? It's like it would create a state change. It's very, very hard to sit there and argue naked. It's, it's just not congruent. And so that in and of itself just creates a state change. Just like, should we get naked? Like you could even just suggest it and boom, what else? Yeah, just really, just doing the hard thing in the moment, which will make your life easy, rather than doing the easy thing in the moment that'll make your life hard.
I love that. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, Corey, you're the man. Thanks for hanging out with us. I see Scott just joined the chat too a little bit. What can we say? We'll be back next week, right? Yep. Are we on for Wednesday? This is like our staff meeting now. Are we on for next Wednesday at noon? Let's see. March 1st. It's on my calendar.
March 1st. Yep.
Good. So you guys hit us in the comments with some ideas and topics. Julie came up with this one on our own, but we'd love for you guys to sort of drive the content here. And we are still looking for a couple that would like to come on the show and, discuss maybe an issue that they're dealing with or some hurdle that they're trying to overcome with Julie's help here. And then we can all sort of observe, watch, and learn. So that would be super cool, right?
That'd be fun.
I'm really looking forward to that.
One day.
Did you work out today?
No.
Wednesday's your off day, right?
Yep.
Okay. I worked out. The video's coming. We snatched and rode and did push-ups and air squats. And my push-ups were really good. My push-ups usually suck. I don't do them a lot. And I think just for women, it's hard. Our muscles are not developed the same way. And I think I did like all of my sets unbroken.
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't done that in a long time, so I'm feeling
Great.
super strong. All right, guys. Did you do the open?
I did.
Okay, fine. No comment. Just it was good.
It was good.
We're not really talking about it, right? Like just
It's
it's
fine.
another training day, and
Yep.
we'll see what happens.
Yep.
Is your body feeling good
Yeah. I
for the most
mean,
part?
what?
For the most part?
For the most part, yeah.
I hit a big birthday milestone on Monday, so I'm in a new age group now.
Ooh, you go.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I didn't peak for this season. I should have. I thought about it maybe 2 years ago, and then I was kinda like, "No, never mind. I'll open up a gym first and get really weak and then try to build it back." So we'll see what happens.
You're still on the comeback.
Yeah, I'm on the comeback trail. All right,
Sweet.
guys. So thank you so much, Julie. Have a great week,
You
and
too.
we will talk to all of you guys next time.